Opening music. I've been saying that for years. One day, one day, we'll have opening music. It'll be very, very exciting. Good evening, everyone. Tuesday, July 25th, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Of course, I get stuff in my throat the minute we start. Excuse me a moment. Looked worse than it was. Hope everyone is doing great tonight. As always, we'll give it a few minutes for people to get in the room. So if you're here, say hello. Let us know where you're from. By us, I mean me. And we'll get started momentarily. Excited to have a good chat tonight. Actually, let me turn on this light. Okay, there's a little bit more light. Hi, Tracy from Boston. It's nice to see you. Yeah, if you're just joining us, please let us know you're here, and you can just say hi and where you're from. We usually have a starter question, which is always very exciting, but I think we'll just start with hi, and then we can jump into conversation. Oh, there's Amy. Yes, I heard. Actually, I had a friend in Wisconsin recently, and they like last week, and they said the weather was amazing, just because it's been so hot everywhere else. So hopefully, Amy, you're enjoying the good weather. Hi, Jen. Have another 30 or 45 seconds. Hello, Ryan. So if you're just getting in, please say hi. Let me know where you're from. We'll be starting in just about 30 seconds. And hi, Hank. See a lot of new faces, or maybe you've been here once before. So that's great. Welcome all. Welcome, welcome. Matt Bannister in the house. And Liz Smith, who is also known as my mother from PTCGA. I wonder if anybody outside of PTC knows what PTC is. Probably not. Robert Spence. Hey, Robert. Sean Shinnick in the house, coming not from Boston, but from Columbia. Good to see you, Sean. Columbus. I was thinking of Draw Your Monster. I was like trying to think of like what you do so I could say it out loud. And in the process, I just flubbed where you are. Karen in Asheville. All right. So yeah, if you're just joining us, Liz says hi. Matt says hi. If you're just joining us, I'll go through some quick housekeeping, but please say hello. Let me know where you're from. And let's get through this quick housekeeping so we can jump into conversation. So my name is Ethan Smith. If you don't know me, I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content. It is not intended to replace therapy, mostly because I'm not a clinician. But for treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The IOCDF is not a crisis hotline. If you are in a crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room. You can call 911 or the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. As always, we want to create a safe space and be kind and respectful to everyone. At the end of the day, we are here to support one another. And also note this is being broadcast on several social media platforms and is being recorded. So always keep that in mind as we talk about sensitive and vulnerable content. With all of that, hi, Beeves Neeves. I like that name. Welcome from Illinois. Mike Sizemore in the house. Good to see you, Mike. Valerie Andrews, the object of my heart, is in. Hi, Valerie. It's good to see you. Okay, so hopefully everyone is doing wonderfully tonight. It's been 2 weeks, which is just about right. We did a little conference overview. Hi, Lois from Long Island. Sounds like a good TV show. I would watch Lois from Long Island. I think that's a good name for a show. What was I saying? But we did some conference wrap up last couple of weeks ago, just talking about the in-person conference. And tonight I really want to focus on you all and see how you're doing and how you're feeling. And obviously I've always got stories and things that we can talk about, so I can definitely jump into that. But I'd like to toss out the first question to you all, which is how you are, what's going on, any topics or conversations that you want to have tonight. Feel free to post them in the comments and we can dive right in. Beeves Knees at 7:04 p.m. wrote, had a really tough moment with POCD today, but I'm doing my best to not ruminate. That is awesome, Beeves Knees. I know, like all symptoms and subtypes, POCD can be excruciatingly challenging and comes with, a lot of stigma and other things, especially just because for people that don't understand, what it is. And so I think that's awesome that you're trying not to ruminate. You can definitely get stuck in your head trying to review and rewind and understand the situation or talk yourself out of something or whatever it be. I think the best goal is to have what I like to say. I usually say more good days than bad is my mantra. And in this case, the goal is really like, can you be more present minute by minute than not present in the course of a day? And I mean, this goes really for any subtype or symptom that's intrusive thoughts and thought-based mental rituals and compulsions. And so, the goal isn't to remove the thoughts. The goal isn't to, hey, cash in the house. The goal isn't to, thought stop or eliminate, but simply coexist with the thoughts and not try to let them grab you and throw you on the roller coaster. So, if we can just be present and come back to the moment as much as possible, it's okay to be taken away. For sure. It happens all the time, whether they're intrusive thoughts or not. So I think that's great. And if you have other questions or any ways we can continue to support you in your endeavors today, please don't hesitate to ask. And also at your comment at 7:05 p.m., have 4 subtypes of OCD. I don't know, maybe you're on the lucky side. I think it's very common to have multiple subtypes. We talk about subtypes, we talk about symptoms. I mean, at the end of the day, OCD is OCD is OCD. And we say that, and sometimes that's controversial because the symptoms and subtypes are very much a part of both diagnosis and treatment. So not at all saying they're not important, but at the end of the day, it's the same disorder and it's the same disease. And the treatment is the same, regardless of the subtype or symptom, right? The first line based treatment, gold standard treatment is exposure and response prevention. And that's the case whether your subtype is POCD or just right OCD or religious group or moral scrupulosity or self-harm or harm of other, whatever it is, right? It's still ERP. And then you can venture off into some other modalities of treatment. My analogy I like to say is, cancer is cancer and there's different types of cancer. And, most cancer responds to chemotherapy like ERP, but within chemotherapy, there's little things you would tweak and change depending on the individual, right? But it's still all cancer. And that's very much OCD, is that it's all still OCD and can all be treated with ERP. Of course, during that process and that treatment modality, there are different tweaks and amendments that clinicians and experts will make in order to get us where we need. But I will say that knowing and having that education that OCD is OCD, I think is really helpful in treating it and living with it, because it's important to know that it isn't that a different treatment works for one kind of subtype or symptom. And then if OCD shifts or transitions to another or morphs to another subtype or symptom, which can happen often and frequently, it can be very sticky, that you require a brand new type of treatment, and that's the beautiful part of treatment is that, it doesn't matter what your symptom or subtype is, you can insert it into this sort of ERP methodology. So I take great comfort in that because my OCD shifts all the time. From one subtype or theme to another. And some months, it's stronger around one thing and then it kind of shifts to another thing. So I'm able to plug and play as it goes and keep up with it and sometimes get ahead of it. So it doesn't, impact me. So thank you for sharing that. Matt Bannister at 7:06 p.m. I've officially submitted for peer support and started mid-September. Can't wait to help the OCD community as a lifelong career. I love connecting with all the community and help as many people as I can towards their recovery and their journey. You're awesome, Matt. Can't wait to meet you in person. I know we all feel that way. Matt has become, for those of you that don't know Matt, we've never met in person, but Matt has become a regular figure and in our live streams, and his insight and his energy and his positivity is so, so greatly appreciated. So we know that you will take that and do amazing things with peer support and helping others. You already help people here. And in all the live streams that you attend. So we look forward to seeing you thrive and supporting you in any way that we can. So thank you for sharing that, Matt. Appreciate it. B's Knees at 7:06 p.m. wrote, I just felt really angry towards my OCD, almost playing the why me card, but I don't like to get in that energy. I don't know why I'm having stuff in my throat. Super sexy. This is a great comment, whether you meant it unnecessarily or not. I think it is okay to be angry at your OCD. Um, I know that I am. I know that I've been angry at my past and the things that OCD took away. And when I got better and entered sort of this maintenance management stage of my OCD life, very much looking back at my past and being so furious and so angry. But like Katie will tell you, my fiance, and I'll tell you, when OCD kind of makes it hard and challenging and I have to fight harder, I get pissed at it. It makes me angry. I don't like being reminded that I have a mental illness. That's just the honest truth. People may not realize that I feel that way because I always say it's a disease, not a decision, and that is all true. But it doesn't mean I like it, right? So I think it's important to validate our emotions in response to our OCD. So you can be angry at your OCD, but then the question becomes, how do we use that anger? And I think anger is a really wonderful motivating tool to fight the OCD. I think it gives us an opportunity to take that energy and that anger and say, okay, what am I going to do about it? F you, OCD, not going to let you take the day away. So I'm going to let you talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I'm just going to sit there and let you say your stuff and be like, okay, sure. Yeah, whatever. And I'm going to go do what's important to me anyway. So I also love the fact that, you don't want to get into that energy, and that I totally understand what you're saying there. And that makes sense as well. But it is okay to be angry at this disorder. It's okay to have feelings about that. And you can definitely transform that anger energy into something really positive and effective at battling your OCD. And I mean, that was really helpful for me in a lot of ways. And using that energy in a way to sort of push back at the OCD. And so it's okay to feel angry, and it's okay to want to feel better as well. And I think there's ways to support both of those things. So I appreciate you sharing, and you're very welcome. Jean in St. Louis, it's good to see you. And I skipped Cash's comment of, yes, I'm still alive. Thank you for that. Inside joke many moons ago. Lois at 7:07 p.m. wrote, these are great comments. Thank you for sharing. I'm so much better with the sticky thoughts. However, when a sticky thought sticks more than it should, it's so frustrating. It absolutely is. And I think that sort of speaks to this, what I was getting at, which is like, oh, I hate, like, for the most part, OCD does its thing, and I'm kind of aware of it sometimes and not the other times. And then, it'll get loud. But when it gets loud and it gets extra sticky, it is really frustrating, and it for a variety of reasons. But I think that, again, all emotions are valid, especially our emotions in response to a stimuli like OCD. I think the goal is, though, to say, okay, yeah, this is frustrating. What can I do about it? I think as awful as OCD is, and as debilitating as it can be, I think we're lucky, and I've said this a lot before, in the sense that, if you have skills and tools through treatment, through therapy, whatever it is, then we have the ability to do something about it on our own when we experience it. And I think that's a gift. I really, really do. So I had vertigo last week, and it knocked me on my ass. And then I had a lot of health anxiety around that vertigo. I immediately catastrophized and was worried that, it wasn't vertigo, it was a brain tumor. My brain went everywhere. And then that's what OCD does, right? So, but I was thinking about the vertigo, and, it took me like 3 days to get in with a doctor to go that they could help me and do some maneuvers and whatnot. And I was comparing that and thinking about, you don't have to, if you've had treatment or therapy, the fact that you can experience a spike or an increase in symptoms from your OCD, but be able to do something about it on your own. Feel very fortunate in that case. And then the cancer analogy, you can't really just do chemo on your own, right? You have to go to the doctor and get infusions and all that other stuff. To be able to use skills and tools and connect with individuals and be able to get support and make very specific value-driven decisions and actions that will make OCD a lot quieter, I think is very advantageous, and it's a benefit. It really is, because OCD responds really well to behavioral therapy and behavioral changes, and so to be able to make those changes on the fly on your own is amazing. So so I would say absolutely it's frustrating, but then it's like, okay, I'm frustrated, but what can I do about it? And maybe you do have to work harder that hour, that day, that next couple of days. I know for me, the beginning of last week, I was definitely like, what if vertigo happens again? What if I get dizzy again? What if things start spinning? Well, what if I drive and it happens? What if I fly and it happens? What if I'm like, I went through the whole thing, and it was frustrating and it was angering, and it was like, oh yeah, thanks for the reminder about this. But then it was like, all right, we've been in this position before, whether it was vertigo or something else, whether it was an OCD thought or something substantial like a real illness or physical issue. But what are my options? My options are I can lay in bed and protect myself from the thing that I'm afraid of, only to create the reality that I'm afraid of, which is to be sick and not be able to function in life. Or I can get up and live my life and be uncomfortable. And maybe I'll get dizzy and maybe I won't. And maybe it'll be messy, but I'm going to continue moving forward and hope for the best, plan for the worst, cross those bridges when I get to it. And that's where we're at, and it hasn't been super smooth this last week, but I feel like I'm doing really well. And despite having a couple other vertigo attacks since then, I kind of gathered myself and continued on. And so yeah, that was a little bit about my week, but it definitely triggered the OCD. I definitely had a lot of frustration about it. I definitely had some anger about it, right? But at the end of the day, so it's acknowledging those feelings, respecting those feelings, letting those feelings be there, and then saying, okay, what am I going to do about that? What moves can I make? And I realized that, that you need, if you haven't had treatment, if you haven't worked with a provider, you don't have those tools and skills. And that's why we're here to educate and hopefully help you find access to treatment, which I know is so challenging. So I always hesitate. I always feel uncomfortable talking about, if you have the skills and tools, because I know so many don't have that. And we're working very hard to change that so it's accessible for everyone, treatment. But anyway, so hopefully that resonated with you all. Cash at 7:09 p.m. said, my fiance is Katie Sang, which is I do use stick with the ick now. So I think Katie that I think Cash that Katie will love to hear that. Wendy wrote, hi Ethan, 7:09 p.m. Hi, in Mexico on vacation with family. What was I thinking hotter than what? Enjoying time with family though. That's amazing. I'm so glad. I don't know if you're still there, Wendy, but I'm so glad you're having vacation time. And if you're there and on the stream, thank you so much. I'm glad to be a part of your vacation. If you're back, regardless, it's always a blessing to be able to. We're going to the beach in about a week and a half, just for a short weekend. And I always anticipate what I call the foreboding joy, which is like when you're allowed to just decompress, let everything wash away, and then you have nothing to worry about. And then you worry because you have nothing to worry about. And you start looking for things to worry about. I'm looking forward to that. And then put it all to bed and go play for sure. Michael Schramm in the house. Mike, it was so good to see you in person and give you lots of hugs, man. Amy Ellickson, 7:10 p.m. OCD is OCD like ice cream is ice cream. It comes in different flavors. Throw some chocolate syrup on ERP on it and then devour it. I love that analogy. So yeah, at 7:10 p.m. Amy Ellickson, I'll read it one more time because it's so good. OCD is OCD like ice cream is ice cream. It comes in different flavors. Throw some chocolate syrup on it or ERP on it and then devour it. Beautifully said. I think Grayson has a similar analogy, but I love that, Amy. So thank you for sharing that. Oh, okay. Sorry. Sometimes my comments adjust themselves and it's really annoying. After work, Beeves Knees at 7:11 p.m. After work, I went out the car and let out a nice scream. Absolutely. I feel good after a good cry sometimes. I mean, like I feel this huge weight. I think that all of these emotions and all of these responses to emotions are completely valid and completely necessary. So, and to piggyback, you wrote, I once wrote a poem one time to turn my anger into positivity. And that's awesome. That's awesome. I think that emotion, there's a really interesting book called The Upside of Your Dark Side. And it's all about embracing all of your emotions. I think that there's a stigma around this fact that we should feel joy all the time. And I also think that's what really exacerbates our own stigma when we're experiencing OCD and we're struggling, especially at times of when you're supposed to be happy and feeling good, like vacation or holidays or things like that, right? But the reality is joy isn't the prominent emotion in life. It just isn't. And, that's why I always say the goal is to live a full life. I would like it to be mostly joyous, if not all joyous. That just isn't realistic though, right? We're feeling a myriad of emotions at any given time. And so I think setting reasonable expectations around what emotions we're going to feel. But I think that certain emotions have different purposes. And that's what this book argues. And it talks about anger, and they talk about a boxer, and is an angry boxer more effective than a happy boxer? And it goes into this whole story. Incidentally, the angry boxer wins. But the emotions are there for a reason, and I think they're very empowering and motivating in many, many ways. And so I think it's coexisting with your emotions and understanding why you're having them, and then using them as a catapult to move towards our values and make really good decisions in fighting our OCD and doing things that are meaningful in our own lives. Matt getting some love from Amy at 7-Eleven. Matt is a great guy to work with. I definitely enjoy his enthusiasm. I agree. Robert Spence at 7:12 p.m. Does anger ever stop the compulsions while you're having them? Does it sometimes replace the fear and stop the cycle? It's a great question. I mean, I can only answer from me, and I've never been asked that question, Robert. And I don't know for me that it stopped the cycle. I definitely think in the moment it provided a very brief sense of relief. Crying did more so for me. I know when I cried in that moment, it gave me a little bit of relief, and I don't know if other people went away, and you probably have already, as the comment was about 10 minutes ago. But for me, I mean, maybe, like I said, crying tended to give me a little bit of that relief, or kind of scratch the record, but it was never permanent or anything like that. And I also don't think, here's the things about emotions, and I want to be very, oh, hey, Rad. Hey, Chad. Good to see you. Thanks for specifying. Glad you're here. I want to be very specific about emotions, because we're talking a lot about emotions, and I'm validating a lot of emotions, but emotions and feelings are very complicated when it comes to OCD, yet they're very simple. So what we've been talking about is the emotions that you feel because you have OCD, or we have OCD, and what it means to experience those emotions, and that it's valid to have those emotions, and that you're not the only one that feels those emotions. So I definitely want to validate you and support you in experiencing whatever it is you experience. Now, where it kind of takes a sharp left turn, and I've talked about this many times before, is when it comes to feelings and OCD. Because feelings, which are emotions, but feelings can be very, very deceptive. Because I feel it, it must be true. Because I feel it, I must have done it. Because I feel it, it's something I need to pay attention to, right? I'm sure you all can relate, whatever your thoughts are, whatever your subtypes, the symptoms are. And that's the pattern. You have the obsessive thought, you get the feeling, which is anxiety and a discomfort, and then you respond with a compulsion. So we have to start separating those feelings from those actions. And this was a big piece for me in my own recovery, was understanding that feelings aren't facts, was understanding that feelings weren't dictating whether a thought was something I should pay attention to or not. I was letting it dictate it, but it wasn't a sign that I should pay attention to. So I will say that all feelings are valid. Absolutely, no one's judging anybody's feelings. But when it comes to treatment, and it comes to ERP especially, we don't want to pay attention to our feelings as they relate to our intrusive thoughts or our obsessions, right? Because if we do, then we're most likely going to engage in a compulsion, because we're letting the feelings dictate our actions. This treatment is all about action. It's all about behavior. And so whether we feel it or not, we're going to do it anyway. The perfect example is, who here works out, who goes to the gym but doesn't feel like going to the gym, but you do it anyway because it's healthy and it's what's good for you. And so you're going to go do it despite how you feel. It's exactly the same thing. You may not feel like resisting a compulsion, but it's in your best interest to do so and follow those value-driven decisions. So in that moment, you're going to ignore how you feel, because you know that the resisting the compulsion is the more value-driven decision. So I just wanted to make sure that because I was giving a lot of weight to our feelings and emotions as we were talking about them. And I just wanted to clarify that was in context to responding to how OCD made us feel about having the disorder, versus our feelings in the moment when we're obsessing and when we're compulsing, and when we should pay attention to those feelings and when we shouldn't. I was taught by my therapist that feelings are valid when I'm struggling, but we don't care about them. They're uninteresting as it relates to OCD. And I found that very helpful in attempting to recognize that they're valid and they are there, but not dictate how I behave moving forward. Commenter 4444 at 7:12 p.m. said, I'm struggling with how to differentiate thoughts that may be OCD driven versus normal self-criticism. Yeah, that's a great question. And you're definitely not alone in trying to, differentiate the difference. A lot of people just struggle with, am I having an OCD thought versus is this not an OCD thought? And, without knowing too much about your background, not all our thoughts are OCD thoughts. Our thoughts are not different than anybody else's thoughts. So we don't have specific OCD thoughts that are unique to us. We all have the same thoughts. Humanity all has the same thoughts, right? It's just a matter of whether we get sticky on our thoughts and they start looping, and whether we start to pay attention and assign emotional reasoning to it and kind of go down the rabbit hole, if you will. What I can say, commenter, is that if you're in treatment or you're actively addressing your OCD, what I found helpful is if I had doubt, I assumed it was OCD, because I think it can be compulsive. I know it can be compulsive to start to try to figure out what is and what isn't, right? So, if I'm in the throes of OCD or I'm in the middle of treatment and I'm really trying to determine what's what and I don't have clarity around it, I'm not sure, well, then I'm going to assume if there's doubt, where there's doubt, there's OCD. It's like where there's smoke, there's fire. So I would just treat it as OCD and move on. There is balance and gray down the road, but it's like, being an alcoholic. It's like, can you go to a bar with friends? No, not while you're actively in treatment and trying to attain abstinence. Does that mean that you can't go to a bar a year from then? May not be the best idea, but some people do. So I know I have friends in AA that are bartenders, right? So it's about where you are in your process. So obviously, self-criticism is extremely normal. And it doesn't have to be related to OCD at all. And recognizing that is important, but in and of it stands right now, if it's looped into the OCD, it's okay. You're not damaging yourself if you just say, you know what? Okay, I'll loop it into OCD for now. I'll just say it is and be like, whatever, and let the self-criticism be there and let it talk and move forward. I love that, Love Lana. Hey, Love Lana, welcome. I hope you're still here. Let it all come. 7:13 p.m. She writes, "Let it all come through because of our feelings, and even have the most uncomfortable or painful. Even the most uncomfortable or painful have a purpose in our journey." Absolutely. Does IOCDF work with NoCD? So the IOCDF, because they're a nonprofit, they don't directly work with any for-profit entities. But NoCD are close friends of the IOCDFs, and they are strategic partners in that they collaborate together. The NoCD is at the conference and has spoken at the conference, and so they are definitely an amazing resource for individuals with OCD and just community and things like that. But I just want to be careful with the word work. But we collaborate with NoCD, sure. Thank you, Beth. Yeah, vertigo is terrible. I started getting it like 2-3 years ago, and every once in a while I'll get an attack, and it absolutely sucks. It really puts me on my butt. Everybody loves Stick with the Ick, which is awesome. North Homeschoolers at 7:16 p.m. Any thoughts on TMS? I'll give my opinion. Normally I don't weigh in on anything else, but having participated in not the actual clinical trials, but in consultation with clinical trials, I would say that TMS for OCD, I would argue the verdict is out still, on whether how effective it is. The clinical trials are working on different variations of TMS using different magnetic stimulation and targeting specific brain regions rather than just the whole brain and trying it differently. I would, this is my own opinion. This is not the IOCDF's endorsement. This is just Ethan. I think TMS is really effective for depression. And I think the studies aren't out yet to determine if TMS, and I know there's FDA approval around a specific kind of TMS. But I've heard very mixed reviews from individuals that have had TMS for OCD. I will say that there's a lot of new research, and like I said, a lot of new TMS clinical trials going on, and some of that data is promising, but nothing is published out yet. So, in my personal, and people may disagree with me, but I personally think, you know, yet to be determined. But with that being said, if you have access to TMS, you know, if you feel it could be beneficial, if your insurance will cover it, which I know it's very expensive and a lot of times it won't, but it's non-invasive. You know, other than a headache or dizziness, I haven't heard about too many negative side effects. So, you know, I'm not endorsing it, but you know, it is a valid option if you know you're doing other types of treatment and you want to try something to supplement it. You know, I haven't heard anything negative about it. So, but that's just my own personal experience with um with it. Uh and yes, IOCDF said we answered Beeves Knees about no CD. So there you go. Um oh, Lois at 7:18 p.m. wrote, Ethan, when I retire next year, I would love to be an advocate like you and Katie. We would love to have you. You're already an advocate being here. But in any way you want to get involved, and this goes for everybody, we can put the link to the advocate program from our website in the chat. And you can at least get started as a grassroots advocate, know about initiatives that are getting started, know about opportunities to write blogs and posts and just be involved and get newsletters about what's going on. But we would love to have you and anyone else here that would love to advocate. And it can look like a lot of different things for a lot of people. And we do a lot of talks on advocacy and what that can look like and how to move forward in your own advocacy. So absolutely. And the first place to start is you can jump on the IOCDF webpage and go from there. And also, I always give out my email address at the end of this. And if you want to email me personally and ask me questions about the advocate program, we can absolutely discuss further as well. That's exciting, Lois. And hi, Jess. I see you up there. Welcome, welcome. No, there's no such thing as late, at least here. Oh, it seems like people were having problems getting on here. Nikki Bradley in the house. Greetings from Dublin. That's a great point, Cash. At 7:20 p.m., Cash wrote, we forget other issues. I hate OCD makes you appear selfish because you are hiding it. I think that's a great point. I think that, you know, OCD in and of itself for individuals without it, it can definitely appear selfish because it's all about us, right? What if, and usually the what if is followed by I. What if I do X and this happens, this doesn't happen? If this doesn't go away, this might go away. Did I do something? Did I not do something? I am the cause. I am the reason. It does appear very selfish. And in some ways, you know, the disorder in and of itself, OCD is selfish, right? We are not selfish, but the disorder itself is very selfish. And so, absolutely, you know, and when we listen to it, it definitely makes us people that we aren't at our heart. You know, it's ego dystonic. It doesn't follow our values. It's not who we want to be. And so when it's really, you know, driving the car, you know, it makes us someone that we don't want to be at all. So I think that's a great point to raise. I totally agree with you. And that's exactly why we have to fight it. You know, we have to fight OCD. And because I think that, I mean, this community are some of the most, and even if you're struggling or not struggling, you're some of the most giving, compassionate individuals I've ever met in my entire life. Not to mention brilliant, smart, good looking, you know, all of our traits. But I, you know, so, and therefore what Cash said stings even a little more because we know at our heart, we want to help others and we want to do the best we can and we want to give back. And so I know that stings even more when people that don't understand, especially family and friends, feel like you're being really insensitive or selfish or things like that. So thanks for raising that point, Cash. I totally agree with you. Beth Carducci at 7:22 p.m. in response to Robert Spence's question about anger wrote, and hi, Beth, it's good to see you. Sometimes I get angry at my OCD and I don't do the compulsion. I'm too mad to care to be afraid of the OCD yelling at me. I'm able to say no in the moment. That's really interesting. So yeah, Beth's experience is, you know, she gets so angry, she basically is like, F it, you know, too mad and too mad to care or be afraid and, you know, F off to the OCD. And that's definitely, and I think that's not a bad thing. You know, I think, you know, we're naturally black and white thinkers. So, you know, I do not think that anger is the answer or a a modality of treatment for OCD, right? However, or at least anger outbursts. But I do think, I know when I was struggling at my worst, I mean, I had it since birth and I struggled for 31 years before finding the treatment. But while I was in that treatment for a year and a half, I was furious every day. I was so pissed. I was so angry, not just at the OCD, but at the treatment, at the therapy, at the people that didn't understand, at the people that did understand, but I thought didn't understand. There was a lot to be angry at. And I definitely would say that, there was a tipping point where the anger definitely fueled my engaging in the treatment and my working to get better. Um, while it wasn't the outburst kind, it was definitely that what was burning inside me that was just so sick of it all, so tired of it all. I was like, nothing was working. The compulsions weren't working anymore. I was just suffering. It was just 100% suffering 24/7. And I was so angry at that. And to Beth's point, I was just like, I don't care anymore. Maybe the worst will happen and whatever. Um, and while I don't want anyone to have to reach that level, like I said before, I think using that anger to fuel your desire to want to get better is an okay thing. 35 years of compulsions, chain them, question mark. How do you rewire a mind? Good question, Cash. Um, so, I mean, I will tell you that you literally do it, rewire a mind by engaging in treatment. PET scans, MRIs, you're literally doing brain surgery on yourself. When you're learning the new behaviors, we're engaging in resisting compulsions and distress tolerance and all of that. You're literally rewiring your synapses in your brain. And this has been proven. Different areas of the brain that were lit up when OCD was really exacerbated are now silent or quiet or unlit in individuals that have reached a certain stage of wellness, and new neural pathways were grooved. And so, yeah, you engage in the repetitive behavior of following values and engage in the treatment. It's not easy after 35 years. It was after 31 for me. But it's the whole reason I advocate. I firmly, with all my heart, believe that if I can get better, you can too. There's literally the fundamental premise at which I advocate from. With how sick that I was, and in no way saying that, I had it worse or whatever. I had it the worst or whatever, but, being completely bedridden and unable to function and in and out of psychiatric hospitals was not fun. So I truly believe, and there's also individuals that have suffered for 40, 50, 60 years before finding the right treatment, and I think we can absolutely change our brain, rewire our mind, use all the assets and all the tools at our disposal, use our emotions, our feelings, our frustration, our anger to inspire us and to motivate us to move forward in ways that might feel really uncomfortable and really against those 35 years of conditioning, where OCD was really in charge. But it is absolutely possible to rewire your mind simply through the behavioral therapy. Um, uh, Katya, hey, Katya, it's good to see you. Katya wrote, can I do DBT and trauma therapy with a not fully trained OCD therapist, or am I taking a risk again? It's a great question. So, while I'm not a clinician, and I'm sure some people may have weighed in, I think that dealing with trauma and dealing with OCD are obviously they're not the same modalities of treatment. And I do think that individuals, OCD therapists, at the end of the day, they're LCSWs and they're licensed clinicians that happen to specialize in the treatment of OCD. Whether they're trauma specialists or not, I don't know, but they are basic therapists that have a specialized training in OCD. My experience, meaning my friends with trauma, not my own experience treating, because I'm not a treatment provider, but my own experience with my friends that have individual trauma is It's been both. Some individuals that I know really benefited from seeing a separate trauma therapist because the trauma was very much informing the OCD behavior and the dysregulation. Now, sometimes it's reversed. Sometimes the OCD is really informing the trauma piece of it, and it needs to be addressed. In some cases, and this isn't helpful because I'm literally laying out every option. I know individuals that are with an OCD specialist that are also dealing with trauma. My own personal experience, and I guess it also depends on the trauma. I have PTSD from things that happened while I had OCD, and I worked with my own therapist to work on it, and we did DBT together. So it really comes down to the skill set of the clinician, as you said, Katya. But I don't know that it's a risk. I think it's more about upfront communication and being informed about what you may specifically need in regards to your trauma therapy and your OCD, helping understand an assessment of what's driving what, or what is the more um, what is the more I can't think of the word. I'm sorry, it's a long day. But what is the more not detrimental, but the thing that's holding you back the most in this moment? It's kind of like substance use disorder and OCD. Like, what do you address first? Can we address both simultaneously? So, I would argue that you can find an amazing DBT trauma therapist who's also fantastic at OCD. So it's really just about vetting and understanding what you need, or what the individual needs, and then what the skill set is of the clinician. And definitely in terms of like questions to ask and better understanding and sort of vetting clinicians, we can definitely help with that. There's great articles on the ICDF website about that. So the answer is yes and no. I don't know that you are taking a risk or you're not taking a risk. And in your case, I realize I may have misread your thing, but you had said with a not fully trained OCD therapist, am I taking a risk again? So maybe I got it reversed. On the OCD side of things, apologies. On the OCD side of things, I mean, potentially, again, if the trauma and the emotional dysregulation, the DBT is really the necessary piece of it, then it's okay that you may not be actively working on OCD. I think the real key to OCD in regards to that is just to not exacerbate it, just not to make it worse. So you may not actively be doing exposure and response prevention, and that's understandable because it's very triggering, right? So that can trigger the trauma. But we also don't want to foster a situation where we're exacerbating the OCD and making it worse by accommodations and enabling and reassuring and so forth and so on. So I think if you can sort of keep some sort of conversation going with the therapist where there's enough information there to know that we're going to put OCD on the back burner. We're going to try to keep the status quo while we work on the trauma, as long as that's understood up front. And we can also keep an eye on the OCD and see if it does in fact worsen, moves we can make. I think that that's okay. But again, that's just my opinion. But hopefully that helped, Katya. I love all the feedback. You guys are awesome. Yes, commenter 444 7:36 p.m. Thank you for responding. I listened to the OCD Stories podcast for the first time where you were speaking about your experience with NBI. Yeah, for sure. I think that's, I don't think the one I'm glad you listened. Thank you so much for listening. I have a couple coming out with Stuart, and I think one out that's your anxiety toolkit with Kim Quinlan. That's out right now on Katie and I's relationship and living with individuals with OCD in a romantic relationship or just as friends. So no, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Love Lana. I see the gray more vividly than the black and white. Shout out. I think I do sometimes, and then sometimes my therapist will point something out, and it'll seem so obvious, like, oh, you're right. There is a middle ground. I don't have to completely give up everything in order to do that one thing. Roberts at 7:37 p.m. wrote, "Thanks, Beth and Ethan. I was thinking about the case where a woman was punching holes in the wall out of anger, which I'm guessing stopped her hand washing rituals." Yeah, that particular case, I wouldn't suggest as something we should embrace. And there may be some behavioral issues there as well. Yeah, I would imagine if you're punching holes in the walls, you're probably not washing your hands. Although maybe you're washing your hands after you're punching the holes because they're dirty. Not making a joke. So no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, at the end of the day, we're talking about, like, how do we interrupt the behavior? And in a way, that is interrupting, but obviously, punching holes or punching anything is a maladaptive behavior, and it's not something we want to adopt as a treatment modality. But no, that makes sense. And it was a great question, Robert. So thank you so much. Amy at 7:37 p.m. wrote, I think it's okay to get pissed at OCD for taking away things and people you value. Use that anger to be determined to get back what you value no matter what OCD throws at you. Amy throwing out what I call the truth spears tonight. Good analogies. Amy, love your support. You're awesome and such a great advocate. So thank you for that. Matt Bannister at 7:39 p.m. Love that mantra, Ethan. If I can get better, you can too. That's so powerful for someone to hear starting recovery. Your Biohaven advocacy video on there with Chris Tronjan and Hannah Zadancic was so inspiring for my recovery. Thank you thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate the shout out. I was just reading Beth's response to Robert about Beth wrote, no, I don't punch anything. Wow, that's really being angry. I'm just trying to get on with my day and I don't feel like dealing with OCD. So I decided that I'm not going to do some compulsions. Beth, that's a bigger win. I think that's you're still disrupting, but your response is kind of adorable. So I appreciate you so much. Beth also writes at 7:42 p.m. and I'm not afraid when OCD tries to scare me to doing compulsions. I say, nope, not going to do it, whatever. And I'm not afraid at all of not doing compulsions. I think that's awesome, Beth. So Cash, you wrote 7:43 p.m. When you get to 42, you give up, to be honest. So I'm going to challenge that thinking. I appreciate your honesty, first of all, for sure. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. I went to early on in my recovery journey. I went to some conferences and I was really upset that I'd lost 31 years of my life, and I was 33 or 34 at the time. And only, this was 2012, 2013 when I started speaking at the conferences after sort of my big recovery. And of course, it's been an ongoing journey since then, but entering maintenance and management of OCD. And I was really pissed and really angry. And I saw a bunch of kids at the conference and I hated the kids because I was like, they found treatment at 8. What the heck? This is BS. But I started meeting individuals in their 50s and 60s and 70s that found, the conference and treatment and OCD support and resources for the first time ever, that grew up. I mean, I always say I grew up at a shitty time. I was born in a shitty time where OCD really was kind of there, but people didn't really know about it. And, this was like the early 80s and 90s. And then by the 2000, Prozac was coming in by the mid 90s. Then OCD was kind of in the vernacular and some people were getting treatment, but but we have, dear friends and advocates like Valerie, who's, a Black woman growing up in the 60s, right? Where it was like, where she found treatment in her 50s and for the first time, and has found, pretty amazing recovery. Despite, everything that she faced growing up, not only as an individual with OCD and anxiety, but, as a Black woman facing everything that I can't imagine, that she had to face, and embracing treatment. And I know, Cash, I think you're in the UK, and obviously I know that with the national healthcare system, accessing treatment is a lot more challenging and it takes forever. And I know that there's a lot of hoops, and I'm not at all minimizing anything that you're saying. But I think if I challenge you to do anything, I would challenge you to rethink giving up, because I've met some incredible people that have given me so much beauty and fulfillment in my life, just in advocacy in the OCD world, that have made me a better person as a human being, that didn't find treatment till they were 50 and 60 and even 70 years old. And, still see a lot of life to live and a lot of things to be done. And it made my measly 31 years seem very small. Not that I'm comparing. You shouldn't compare. It's not about that. 1 year is too long. 6 months is too long. Not invalidating. But that's my spiel, Cash. So, keep being on here, keep harassing me, and let's figure out some ways to move you forward. And you're welcome, Katya. Oh, wow, I caught up. This is very exciting. That was my goal. I was like, I got to get to everybody. So I'm going to read these so fast. And in doing so, misread most of the questions. So I'm just have to live with the uncertainty that I gave everyone terrible information. Okay, Nikki. Yeah, Cash just wrote, we cannot all be happy all the time, I suppose. Again, that's why I always say a full life. Not the goal isn't to live a happy life. It really isn't. Um, I should say the my goal is to live a happy, joyous, excruciatingly smiley life. But that's probably not reality. Life is hard. And I've talked about this, and this. Life is freaking hard. Um, life is hard. Sorry, I was reading Cash's response. What do y'all? Sorry, I was getting confused at what you were talking about. I'll just ignore. Hey, Grace from Mission. I'm so glad you're here. But life is hard, and I think we really have to start to give ourselves a ton of self-compassion. And I've talked about all of this a gazillion times, but self-compassion is hard. I always say it's like learning Japanese backwards, for me anyway. I will always remain a student of self-compassion and never a master. Good night, love, Lana. Be well. And I think that this idea of navigating OCD, navigating OCD is difficult enough. Navigating it within the throes of life is even harder. Navigating life without OCD turns out to be really challenging, because I truly believe that once they got OCD under control, life would be super, super easy. I really believed that. And it isn't. The reality is we have to give ourselves a lot of grace, a lot of love, and a lot of self-compassion, and recognize that this isn't a straight line. And you've all seen that meme of like what I thought life was going to be, and then what it is, and it's got the moat and the rope swing and sharks and dinosaurs and all kinds of stuff. But life is pretty beautiful. It really is. And even in the gray and dark times, I always end up finding silver linings, whether it's that moment or 3 years from now. And that's what gives me hope in the darker times, is that so far, inevitably, any dark times that I've had, I found silver linings at some point. Really beautiful silver linings, to be honest. And so even in my own journey of OCD and recovery, I mean, this is a silver lining, being able to talk with you all, being an advocate, going to the conference, meeting amazing folks. Do I want OCD? No. Would I change my path? No, I wouldn't. Because I am who I am today because of this path. So I think that lowering our expectations, as Kim Quinlan always says, let's try to be a B- human being. Let's strive for a B-, and not try to be perfect. But I remember what I was saying. I was stalling because I forgot what I said, which happens. But the silver lining, that's what, when I'm deep in it, in whatever it is, I'll try to remember that there is going to be a silver lining here. The initial silver lining is that, before I wasn't playing in I wasn't playing in life. I was literally bedridden. And so to be able to just experience life that's hard feels like a gift. But also recognizing that at some point there will be a silver lining to this is really helpful in moving through it, because I do know that something amazing will come of it, and it usually does. Robert Spence says, actually, that case was halted by rage rather than anger. I'm remembering a qualitative difference, but it's good to hear that anger can stop in a positive way. Yeah, for sure. And I think Beth highlighted, and I think many of us can relate to this idea of being angry to a point of just like, I don't care. I'm just going to stop now. I'm not going to do this thing because I'm just over it. I love that, Matt. 7:51 p.m. Matt wrote, Cash, I definitely recommend joining any IOCDF support groups and SIGs. You're never alone. You're more than welcome to join my support group with the IOCDF OCD Warrior Badasses. I love that so much. And that's a great point. I don't know if they've already done it, but they can definitely put a link to various support groups. They're all free. And also, you can check out No CD. and download their app, and their community is totally free. We also have, if you're unaware, we have Health Unlocked, which is our OCD community. I think there's about 7,000 members all chatting and talking. We can put a link to that as well, keeping everyone behind the scenes kind of busy tonight, so I apologize for that. But yeah, support groups is a really great way of connecting with folks, and knowing you're not alone, and you will meet individuals that are your age or a little bit older or a lot older, and hopefully help you navigate. And you can always email me, Cash, and we can have a conversation, or you can just email me and give me lots of shit. I'm down for either one of those things. Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate that. John would always feel good after your streams, Ethan. Uh, thank you so much. I won't skip that commenter. 7:54 p.m. Well, I guess he's asking everyone else, and I don't know if anyone else responded. But commenter wrote, "You can skip this. I don't want to offend anyone. Does anyone fear that they will be dismissed as woke if they are open? Is woke joke a phrase?" I mean, use the word fear. So I think the context is irrelevant. I think that cancel culture is real, right? And I think we've all thought about, if I say that, it doesn't matter about woke or politics or race or any of that. If I say that thing that I believe in and somebody else disagrees with it, am I going to get canceled? The reality is, though, is you don't want to offend anyone, and neither does anybody else, really, unless you do. Sometimes Cash offends me, but I see it as love. Cash, I know you love me. I know you do, and I'm okay with that. But I think the real key word there, commenter, is fear, and the question is, if we fear offending people all the time, then we will never be true to ourselves, right? Whatever that is, that can be a comment, that can be art, that can be your job, that can be literally whatever. Living in fear keeps you from moving forward, and so it really is less about what's the core fear there. What are you afraid of? Okay, well, am I afraid of being dismissed as woke or not woke, or to this or to that? And it's really understanding that most likely you don't want to offend someone, which is a very common OCD subtype. You don't want to be offensive. You don't want to perceive as offensive in one direction or the other. It doesn't matter. And so definitely understanding that and treating that fear a bit like OCD. I'm not saying go out and ERP and say really offensive stuff to people at all. Definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is to recognize, if I once, I don't remember if it was on a live chat, we had the discussion, or it was an email, but I spoke with someone that was a journalist and had terrible OCD and stopped writing opinion pieces because he was so terrified that he would offend someone to the point of that person taking their own life. And he stopped writing completely, lost his job, moved back in with his family. And we started talking, and he was like, yeah, I was a journal. I mean, he wrote for big magazines and big outlets and things like that. And he stopped writing completely because he was so terrified that what if one of his articles led to someone taking their life? And, we, as his friend and advocate, we processed that idea and what that meant, versus living toward what he dreamed and loved to do and letting OCD dictate. And he eventually got with a therapist, and I'm proud to report, he's back to reporting and speaking his truth and speaking his mind. And, we're not responsible for other people's actions and thoughts. We can't control their thoughts. We can't control their fears. We can't control their behavior. We can only control our actions and our behavior. We can't even control our own fears and our own thoughts and fears. I'm sorry, our own thoughts and emotions. We can only control our own focus and behavior. So, if you think by not speaking, you can control whether somebody is offended by you, that's actually probably incorrect. That's a cognitive distortion. Because also OCD will tell me that if I didn't say anything, but I looked a certain way, then I offended him. What if I wore this thing? What if I gave him a look out of my side eye? Whatever it is, OCD will poke a hole in it, right? So I think you highlighted some really good stuff there, comment, and hopefully that gave you some direction. I know we're running out of time. I was just looking real quick. I know you love teasing, Ethan. I'm glad you tease, for sure. All right. Well, I think, yeah, it's late for Cash. Here's the deal. It's Cash's bedtime. He's in the UK. I say he. I apologize. I honestly don't know what your gender is. See, and now I've offended you, and I'm woke, and I'm getting canceled. Um, so Cash, it is your bedtime. So I think we're gonna call it. It's also 8 o'clock, but more importantly, it is your bedtime. So with that, um, I want to thank everyone so much for being here. This is a great, lively discussion, and I want to thank all of you for. I love your emojis. I want to thank everyone for just weighing in and contributing and supporting and being advocates in your own right. You know, your comments in the thread are just as important, if not more important, than anything that I'm saying. So shout out to you all and thank you for supporting. As always, I want to thank Brennan and Fran behind the scenes for supporting. Some quick announcements. So walks are taking place across the country. You can visit iocdf.org/walk to find a walk near you. Also, the online OCD conference registration is now open. You can visit onlineocdconference.org to register. This year's online OCD conference will feature 2 days of virtual programming for the entire OCD and related disorders community. This week, we have a lot going on, actually. Obviously, tonight was community conversations. Tomorrow, we have a lunch and learn starting at 12 p.m. Eastern. You won't want to miss that. Thursday, we're doing an IG takeover. And Thursday night at 7 p.m. is a chronic and illness disability town hall. I'm pretty sure that'll be led with the amazing Kim Quinlan. So you'll definitely want to tune in for that. You can view all of our live programming and see the schedule at iocdf.org/peace of mind. And as always, if you want to be reminded, yep, that link right there. Thank you. And as always, if you want to be reminded that we're gone live, you'll be notified. Please feel free to subscribe and like and follow and all the things at all the social media platforms that we broadcast at: YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, and all the other ones as well. They're not coming to mind at the time. Finally, if you need resources, you can always visit iocdf.org. Thank you again all so much for being here. My email address is justethan@iocdf.org. Please don't hesitate to email me there. It is my email. No one else checks it. And so it is private and confidential. So please feel free to Cash, are you talking to me? Because that's hilarious. I love when you give me crap. So yes, thank you. You can email me at justethan@iocdf.org. We'll end with Matt, which is keep laying the ERP smackdown on OCD, y'all. I love that. And you have been with us too much. He's in the UK and he's saying y'all. You listen to too many live streams, Matt. With all of that, thank you so much for spending your Tuesday evening with us. Stay safe, stay vigilant, feel the feels. Don't let OCD off the hook. As Matt said, lay the smackdown. And we'll talk to you next time. Have a good night.